Spoiler alert, although Bungie actually showed off some loot for the new raid themselves before Edge of Fate dropped. You guys may remember I was wondering where this weapon would come from, as it didn't appear to be part of the sets for Kepler or Portal things that Bungie had showed off. This is actually a clip from Bungie's B-roll for Edge of Fate showing off the shooting range. Turns out that is actually a raid weapon, best we can tell right here. So in today's video, we're going to preview some of the loot that will come from the Desert Perpetual. And this is thanks to an article by Destiny Bulletin and the game post rounding up a handful of upcoming rewards for the raid. So if you do not want to see any of it, then obviously don't watch the video. I tried to keep the thumbnail spoiler free as possible, with the exception of the thing that Bungie had already showed us in this weapon. So the game post shared an exotic weapon, legendary weapons, and armor sets, as well as titles, emblems, and more for the upcoming raid. I'll link their full article down below. Here's a pop-up card for the raid that they shared in this blog. And according to the article here, the exotic reward for the Desert Perpetual is likely a strand-heavy rocket launcher. Funnily enough, none of the outlets that have spoken about this have been able to confirm a perk for the exotic weapon. This weapon was also leaked via its icon in some developer footage, so generally Bungie haven't done as good of a job as normal when it comes to hiding these rewards. In terms of a potential perk though, funnily enough, in the API, so this isn't data mined, it's actually in the database right now, there is a perk called Coronal Culmination. When we look at the image, it would appear that we're looking at a strand weapon, but the perk here says we can hold to charge and release to fire, and charged projectiles have a delayed solar payload. Plus, this weapon can be charged with solar energy to massively increase its damage. There's additionally the anticipation trait. The charge speed of this next weapon shot slowly increases over time. Anticipation builds more quickly as you deal more damage with other weapons. Obviously, with references to solar, it would appear we're looking at a dual element weapon, and the biggest giveaway that this is indeed the perk for this exotic weapon, if you look at the perk icon, that same sort of strand weave that we actually see on the weapon is visible on the icon as well. So if I had to guess, yes, this perk belongs to the weapon referenced by Destiny Bulletin there. Otherwise, the article also goes into legendary weapons. So there'll be a stasis auto rifle, an arc combat bow, which is actually the crossbow variant. Again, I think it's the one Bungie showed off in their live stream. There's also a solar fusion rifle, stasis rocket launcher, strand sniper, and arc submachine gun. In terms of what they'll look like, here's the auto rifle that Bungie shared in their gameplay, Intercalary. We don't know all of the perk rolls for these yet, but the origin trait is frame of reference, and final blows with this weapon temporarily grant increased damage, reload speed, and range, and the effect is frozen in time when the weapon is stowed. From Bungie's footage here, we can actually see that frame of reference is active on the weapon. So again, I'm really surprised that they actually showed the weapon off in some shooting range gameplay. Otherwise, this is the combat bow, the opaque hourglass. Indeed, Bungie did show it off in their live stream. I guess because they wanted to have a bit of juice for Edge of Fate to show off in that one. They've gone ahead and showed raid weapons anyway. At least they didn't confirm that it was a raid weapon in the live stream. Otherwise, there is the Finite Maybe, which is a fusion rifle with solar damage. And we have the When and Where, the Stasis rocket launcher, followed by Lance Ephemeral, the Strand sniper, and finally the Antidate. Looking at the image, I only just realized this. It says submachine gun, but it certainly looks like a sidearm. Not sure what's going on there. But in terms of raid armor, it's going to be some pretty interesting looking stuff. We can see icons for all of the sets there, but here's a better look shared on X of the Warlock helmet. Certainly heavy Vex vibes there. I actually think the style, at least for the Warlock one, looks pretty cool. In terms of the set bonuses for this armor, the 2-piece bonus says picking up an ammo brick gives you a stacking bonus to weapon swap and stow speeds until you die, with the 4-piece perk stating that suspend, unravel, and sever effects applied to targets and radiant and restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. So another bunch of interesting bonuses right there being added to armor in Edge of Fate. But additionally, in the original post here, there are references to 2 different emblems that we'll get access to. Bungie actually showed the normal emblem, plus we have the icon for the title seal there. So that's a preview of the bulk of the rewards. Of course, there'll almost certainly be additional things that we'll get, like cosmetics, probably a ghost, sparrow, and ship. And this will of course be for the normal initial launch of the raid. We know that the raid is going to get a challenge update some point after September 9th when Ash and Iron drops. And Bungie had previously said that the goal was to potentially even add new encounters to the epic raid, or the challenge updated raid. But ultimately, it will also enable us to get higher tiers of raid loot, potentially additional weapons and things being added, and a catalyst for the raid's exotic. So there are plans to update this raid a bit later on. They also referenced adding new rewards, mechanics, feats, and the fact that this will kick off with a raid race event and be a venue for experienced raiders to further challenge their skills. So, like I said, this will drop shortly after the Ash and Iron update. Obviously, we're going to probably require the power increase that comes with that seasonal update as well. And with Bungie saying that higher tiers of the raid rewards being available from upcoming challenges, it sort of indicates potentially we won't be able to get necessarily tier 4 or 5 weapons from this raid until around about September. So it's certainly a different approach versus what we've seen in the past. And it sort of fleshes out that endgame content pipeline a little bit, right? Because we're getting one raid and one dungeon a year now instead of a raid and a couple of dungeons. So the challenge update kind of offers additional endgame activity content for September, at which point it will only be 3 or 4 months until we get to Renegades, where the new dungeon drops. So you'll have to give me your thoughts down in the comment section with regards to any of these rewards. Also, let me know if you're going to be jumping in for the contest raid this weekend, or whether you might hold off for the normal raid as we head into next week and beyond. Otherwise, if you enjoyed the video, a rating really does help me out. Also, get subscribed to the channel for more Destiny content, but otherwise, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you guys have an awesome day.